All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Bed Tech Show. We are your hosts, Ethan and Ben. You'll have to excuse Dallin this evening as he's taking care of a personal matter with his family. We are just your average Joe tech enthusiasts here to give you our take so that you can be more informed on the decisions you make regarding tech and the news. So, tonight we've got quite a few things we're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking about Ubisoft and the Google Stadia cancellation. I'm going to be talking about how YouTube is getting a little bit greedy with their premium subscriptions. Also, be getting into the new prototype humanoid Optimus robot and a little bit of Apple and what's in store for their future. There's also been a new bill that's been passed for big tech anti-competition mergers, and Elon Musk is now actually buying Twitter and trying to avoid the trial. We might even get into some Super Mario news about Chris Pratt being the star and the first Tesla semis to be delivered here at the end of the year. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Let's get into Ubisoft and their big announcement that they had. So here in the article, they had some interesting things. Ubisoft and Bungie are scrambling to evacuate their players' games and from the capsizing Google Stadia. Uh, recently just recently, Google Stadia said that they would be shutting down at the end of next year. And this was kind of a big surprise. They didn't really give a whole lot of warning to any of their partners like Ubisoft or Bungie. And here we've got Ubisoft, who has got a few games within Google Stadia as their main platform for the games. And with that, they had to come up with a pretty quick off the shelf plan on how they were going to save their games. A lot of what they said is they were going to be moving these games into their Ubisoft Plus subscription and giving PC support. So, Ben, what are your thoughts on this whole Google Stadia cancellation and their lack of notification to their big developers?
Yeah, I think it's wild actually. It really does blow my mind that they didn't give any kind of heads up or include the big developers in their decision making on proceeding with the platform, the health of the platform, the market demand they have. And this goes back into our conversation that we had last episode with Logitech coming out with a cloud gaming device, handheld device, and a lot of pretty much you, Dallin, and myself all said like, I don't really think there's a market here. And then the next day, Google Stadia is like, oh, we're no longer providing the service within a year, and it's like, okay, so there's no market. But the fact that they weren't keeping the developers in the loop, and I assume they weren't because this sounds like a shock, but maybe they were, and just hints weren't taken, and they couldn't see what was happening down the road. But I'm blown away by the fact that they're scrambling to try and transfer games. It's like the rug was pulled out from the consumers. And I feel really bad for anyone who is a gamer on Stadia and who has made progress with their games and purchased games, because there's this stress of like, am I going to have my games, excuse me, that I paid for? And if so, how's that going to happen? Is it going to transfer over to PC like is being stated here? Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of blows my mind. Like I said, I'm blown away by it that it comes to a surprise to big game developers.
Yeah, if I were a gamer, like if I were really big into Stadia, I would be a little bit stressed. I mean, you made this investment into getting some of the games. You're starting to get into them, and then all of a sudden, there's going to be no support for them, and you're going to have to move to another platform. And, you know, even though this was kind of a shaky, it had a rough start with the cloud gaming anyway,
Mhm.
but I still like this technology. I like the idea of cloud gaming. I wish that it would be successful. However, kind of as we talked about last week, there's just uh not a whole lot of support. There's not a lot of infrastructure to
Yeah.
support such such high bandwidth for these games.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. I think I'm with you on that. I think there are a lot of gamers who, they love to play in a very mobile aspect, whether it's lunch break at work or whether it's, traveling or on a holiday, or let's just say they're outside enjoying like a walk. Their kids are playing on a playground. They're like, oh, my kids are playing on the playground, like they're preoccupied with their friends. I'm going to just game for the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Like everyone has their own way of stress relief. And if people can enjoy cloud gaming, I think that would be a phenomenal aspect. Now, with the fact that it's going like the games that they purchased to play mobile and, away from, a desktop or a standstill console or whatever it is, this isn't appealing to them. This isn't appealing to the consumers. You choose to go the Google Stadia route for a reason. And saying, oh yeah, we'll transfer your games to like your PC. It's like, that's not why I bought these games in the first place. I bought them so I could play them on the go wherever I wanted, you know? And so that's what's sad to me is like the unfortunately the infrastructure wasn't in place. Um, and maybe the demand wasn't there, but it does more sounds so like it just wasn't planned well from Google's side, and they didn't support it well, and then they also didn't inform Bungie or Ubisoft, right?
Yeah.
So crumbled.
Yeah. Uh, it's kind of a sad state of affairs. I mean, I'm glad that Ubisoft is trying to do something
Yeah,
to
yeah, I
to
agree.
remedy it, which kudos to them for that. I, some other companies would just say, well, gave it
That's
our best
that.
shot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To that, like my praise to them, right, for trying to get any kind of reconciliation out of it. So
Yeah. I hope it works out for everyone in the end. Um, However, it's kind of sad that Stadia's failure is going to be hurting other gamers. However, at least Ubisoft is doing their part and trying to make things a little bit better.
yeah, yeah.
All right, let's get into YouTube Premium. So unfortunately, we may soon need to be paying for YouTube Premium in order to watch 4K videos. And, you know, which is kind of interesting to me. I'm a YouTube Premium subscriber myself.
Okay.
Not necessarily for the 4K content, but more so just because I find ads infuriating. And so, and it seems to be every time that I watch YouTube, there seems to be more and more ads, and so it kind of locked me into that premium. But
Yeah,
my use case for YouTube is mostly watching it on my phone, where 4K content wouldn't even necessarily
yeah,
be necessary. But
yeah. That'd be
every time
minimal.
that I am on my computer, it is kind of nice to get that 4K upscale and that eye
Mm,
candy.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on this new paywall system that they might be going to?
Yeah, I'm with you where most of the time when I'm watching YouTube, it's on my phone. Rarely, I'll go on YouTube on my computer to catch like highlights of things or look up specific clips. Um, I do think it's a money grab, and I don't think YouTube's the only one doing it. We see Disney Plus putting up new pay levels, different subscription levels, and like the cheap ones that are comparable to the current price, they're gonna have ads now and commercials and whatnot. And it's frustrating to see that, I mean, I think we all knew going into it when Disney first announced, hey, this is our price, and everyone thought this is very cheap. We all knew that down the road they're going to be making changes to either increase the price, but we see this a lot with not just YouTube, but Disney Plus and a few others where they're really emphasizing, or at least not emphasizing, they're really just changing their pricing to nickel and dime everyone, because they know that they have some content that people are going to want. Now, I personally don't subscribe to YouTube Premium. I don't really feel it's worth my money. Um, but I can see that being frustrating for those people who do watch YouTube on a regular basis at 4K. That's frustrating, you know. And I have my own preferences on things that I pay for. Like, for example, Crunchyroll is an anime service. I pay a premium for that, and I don't have to. I can pay. I don't have to pay anything, and I can watch the ads. I freaking hate watching ads when I'm watching a show, and
Ads
I
are the
love
worst.
anime. Like, I'm a big anime guy, and so when I'm watching my anime, like, I don't want to watch any ads. I'm like, I just want to see the episode. I want to binge the episodes, and so that's what I pay a premium for. And if they were to come out and say, hey, we're changing our pricing plan, even with paying, we're gonna include ads and whatnot, and you only get the high quality when you pay even more, I'd be a little peeved. So for those who do subscribe to YouTube Premium, or don't, I should say, and watch 4K, now you have to pay for it. It's frustrating. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very frustrating.
You brought up a good point. I mean, when Disney Plus first came out, their service was fairly cheap. And I think they did that strategically to, entice people to sign up for it. You see what's
Yeah,
on Disney Plus and you're like, oh, this is good content. So, and then
yeah,
in a year they raise their prices and you're like, oh, now that my kids are hooked to this, I can't get rid of it. So,
yeah.
and,
The
and
hook.
yes, and if they're like me and you who hate ads, gonna pay that premium,
Yeah,
fortunately.
like, I don't want to watch ads while, like, if I'm watching Iron Man 3 or like Avengers, I don't want to have an ad in the middle of that. That's so
Oh yeah,
frustrating.
that's the worst. You might as well go back to TV.
Yeah, yeah, honestly. And by the time that you calculate all the subscriptions you're paying, you pretty much, you're like, I'm paying the cable fee, if not more. So
Yes. So, I mean, it seems to be the way of the world now. It's
yeah.
kind of sad that that is what it is, but unfortunately, people are going to pay for it. I'm still probably going to pay for YouTube Premium just for the fact that I hate ads.
Yep.
So,
And I'll be paying for that higher tier Disney Plus subscription,
yep, me
to be
too.
honest.
So I guess the key is maybe one of these will be bundled in with like a Verizon premium service or T-Mobile or
Yeah.
AT&T.
Yeah.
So that that'd be the silver lining, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Phone services for the win, please.
Yes, for sure. All right. Tesla just announced at their AI Day presentation of their prototype humanoid Optimus bot. So I don't know if you had a chance to see this, Ben, their new Optimus prototype, or even if you saw the AI day that happened last year where they first teased the announcement of this. And I, for me, I'm kind of torn at this. I think it's a novel idea and something that's pretty cool. However, I think it's really odd that Tesla is the one that is purporting and designing this prototype humanoid bot. What are your thoughts?
No, man, you bring up a really good point. I'm a mixed bag as well. We've had a lot of sci-fi movies. I mean, you talked about iRobot before we got on the show, and it's really interesting. This is something that we've predicted to happen in the future, and maybe we're going this direction because we've thought of it in sci-fi. And as a result, I'm a mixed bag. My thoughts are: what are the capabilities? What are the limitations? How smart is this? Is it just, basic commands that you can tell it? There's so many questions I have about it. And obviously I haven't done my homework on it. I probably should do a little bit more. But I think the point that I thought was interesting you made was, why Tesla out of all of these companies? I mean, Tesla is a car manufacturer. Granted, they're innovative with electronics and technology, but they're a car manufacturer. I mean, that's the industry they're in. Why are they bringing robots to the table? I mean, I would expect Elon to do this, like, with his Boring Company,
Yes. Or
or
some other
Chris.
company.
Yeah, like create a separate company that's, you know, a robotic engineering company. That's my thought, right?
You know, one use case that I just thought of that they could do with this is, they have their production line that has autonomous robots that do
Ooh.
the majority of the work, but there are some elements that require a human intervention
Hmm.
to perform that. So essentially, this could step into that and perform those human functions.
That's
Because
a yeah, that's a good point.
I think that what this is designed to do is to kind of take some of the mundane things about your human tasks that another robot couldn't necessarily do and perform them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. And like I said, I don't know what the capabilities are of these things, but if
Yeah,
they
I
really are smart, then there's almost endless capability, right? And there's a line in the article that you I mean you didn't specifically scroll over it, but I saw, and I know for a fact people are going to use this for all applications, um, personal, intimate applications specifically. I know that's going to happen, you know, and so it's going to be wild to see where this goes, and it'll be really interesting. You know, I read a different title of an article that said it was clunky but a big step in the AI direction or the robot direction. And it'll be really interesting to see how well they create these things and how complex they become, um, and human like. I think
yeah.
it'll be really interesting, probably scary, you know, to see.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see like how much autonomy these will have as, the generations of these move forward. Because,
Yeah.
I'm really thinking of iRobot, once they got to their fifth generation, the robots decided that humans were the problem and that they needed to be quarantined.
Yeah. Corrupted. Right.
Yes. So, um, I guess when will the robots take over or
Yeah.
Terminator? You know?
Yeah, and how do we defend ourselves against them? We need to get EMP grenades, right? Just like in
Yes,
Warzone or whatever.
Sarah Connor.
That's
So
right.
we just need her. So, but yeah, it's really interesting. I I like your opinion. I think this is really innovative, and I think it's not a bad idea. I just I don't think that Tesla is the best company for this to be under. I really think
Yeah.
that it needs to spin off into a new company because, Tesla itself as a company, they aren't perfect and they have their own problems when it comes to manufacturing and quality of their vehicles.
Mm,
So I think that's something that they should work on before they delve into something that's kind of off the walls.
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All
Yep.
right, let's get into Apple. We've got a couple of things to talk about with Apple. A couple of things that they teased were that the report was that Touch ID might come back to the iPhone. However, it looks like that's not going to be the case. And then also now in Europe, they are going to be required to have USB-C ports on their phones. Um, so let's get into the USB-C issue.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that
Yeah,
for
I think it's
Apple?
yeah, I think it's really interesting. So the European Union, they think that passing this law of requiring all smart devices to have USB-C. I think it's all smart devices, not just smartphones, but have USB-C because they think it'll reduce waste primarily, um, and it'll allow for, you know, consumers to have consistency and fluidity amongst their charging, and so it's not going to, you know, have as big of a environmental impact, I think. And it was an overwhelming vote, and sorry, it's so I just read it's all mobile phones sold in the EU to use a USB-C port. Um, And it's really interesting because Apple has their own lightning port, their lightning jack.
Yeah, it's been
And
there since 2012. It is such an old port. It uses a USB 2 standard.
yeah, yeah, which is crazy, right? That they've had this port jack for so long. So supposedly this law isn't going to impact anything. It's not retroactive, meaning it's not going to impact anything that happened before the passing of this law. It's only proactive. So any new Apple phones, I don't know if they're just going to completely change everything to be USB-C, or if they're going to have like an EU specific phone version that's USB-C capable. But if that's the case, that's two product lines, that's multiple operations, right, for those two product lines. And you're probably going to have consumers from all over the world purchasing those EU phones. You're going to have a lot more demand for those ones because I know for me personally, I have a lot of devices that are USB-C. I'd rather have all my devices on one charging port than have multiple. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Um,
So I would be shocked if Apple does multiple product lines for their iPhones. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in 2024.
yeah. I I kind of think that they're going to try and do something to get out of this. Um, by doing something radical and removing all ports from their phone and
Ooh,
have a portless iPhone, just
just
as a way to say F you to the EU.
yeah, and just do like yo, you're trying to be environmental friendly, we'll be even more environmental friendly. No charger necessary. And all you have to do is just put it on a wireless charging pad or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's fair
So,
point. That's probably what they'll do, something like that.
I love it when Apple is being forced to do something that they don't want to do because they're just such a big company, and I really like it when that happens. But knowing them and their history, they're probably going to do something to try and get out of this and just so they can do their own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of smart people at Apple. I'm sure you're right. And I know for a fact, big companies like that don't like getting pushed around by legislation. They
Yes.
like to either push back or weasel their way out of it.
I mean, which is interesting because I know Apple, they pay a lot of money for people to lobby legislatures and lobby things in their favor. That's one of the big things that major companies have is they have that lobbying support to help shape policy into their favor. It's just interesting that they didn't have enough to support the policy of keeping their lightning port.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And then also there's a report that they are unlikely to bring back Touch ID to their phones. A couple years ago when the pandemic first started and we were required to wear face masks, and they brought Face ID to the iPhone 10 in 2017, those face masks were kind of a hindrance of the whole Face ID authentic authentication feature. And it required you to enter in your passcode each time that you had a face mask on. And they brought the software update that allowed you to wear a face mask and still unlock your phone. However, there was a rumor that they were going to bring Touch ID back as an additional authentication feature. And now it looks like that is not even going to come back, and we're just going to be with Face ID on iPhones for the foreseeable future. What are your thoughts on um, if there were to have multiple authentication features on your iPhone?
Yeah, I like the ability to have Touch ID. I'm not saying like I yearn for it or I miss it deeply, but if there was another option, I would like that, right? Because we kind of chatted about this briefly, but it is frustrating when my Face ID doesn't work when I'm wearing something on my face, right? Glasses or a mask or sometimes even a hat like I am now, it won't catch up or won't catch my face right. And, or if the lighting outside is bad, I don't know, just some weird stuff. And then I have to put my password in. I'm like, yeah, okay, wow, first world problems. You have to put a password in. But convenience wise, I would love just to have like fingerprint touch ID because that rarely triggered a passcode and failed, right?
Yeah, that was a very it was a very refined process, especially once we got to the later generations of the Touch ID. Yeah, it was very consistent and very reliable. And I
Yeah,
don't think Face ID has gotten to that level of reliability or consistency.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, definitely. And I can understand why Apple wouldn't bring it back, right? Most of their iPhones, especially the new ones, they don't have a button except for, right, they have the Apple logo on the back, which I think is a button technically, but then they would have to embed a fingerprint reader in that button. And that just complicates things. And they could also use the reasoning of having another process to enter the privacy of your phone is an additional security risk. Um, I don't know. That I can understand why they aren't bringing it back. They just don't think it's necessary, and they think that they can fulfill the needs of the consumer with just Face ID and passcode, which they can. In all honesty,
Yeah,
it does not having Touch ID has no negative impact on me personally. It's just a nice to have for sure.
right. I mean, that would be the ultimate luxury, the
Yeah.
quintessence of the iPhone. However, however, we won't get to experience that quintessence in the
So
foreseeable
sad.
future,
So sad.
unfortunately. All right. Let's see here. So the House passed a antitrust bill requiring a larger merger filing fee. Ben, do you want to kind of go over this?
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely go over it. I thought this was really interesting. I found this article. I find it interesting because I do see, a lot of not I, but the world sees a lot of mergers and acquisitions among big tech, and each big tech company is just trying to dominate the market more and more, and so they're trying to acquire. I mean, obviously they want to grow organically with building their own consumers and their clients and everything, but they also purchase other companies in order to have more dominance in the market. And essentially, this bill, it's the first of many that are trying to fight against these anti-competitive mergers that happen, especially in big tech. This first one that was passed, it raises the fee of a merger. And so let's say if Google wanted to acquire, another large search engine or like, I don't know.
Mozilla.
Yeah, sure. And if they wanted to do that, they have to pay a larger fee now in order for that to happen. So that's the first detractor, is paying the larger fee. The second detractor is that larger fee is going to the FCC, and they're going to be increasing their resources to essentially audit and analyze this merger and acquisition. And so as a result, it's okay, Google, you're going to have to pay more, and we're going to be looking at you with higher scrutiny because we don't want to have you dominate the market, and we don't want to have you just take away any kind of competition and have essentially an oligopoly or monopoly around the market. So oligopoly, sorry. And yeah, it's just really interesting to see that this was passed. It was pretty strong favor from both sides, Democrats and Republicans, passing it. And then there's a couple more bills coming out that are more focused on companies' marketplaces. So Apple's app marketplace, Amazon, their listing marketplace, and Google Chrome, their marketplace. uh, essentially to avoid any kind of strong bias. It would eliminate Apple's ability to promote their product a lot more strongly than Google's on Apple's marketplace. So trying to make it more fair for people on listing on marketplaces.
I wonder if this is stemming from the Microsoft and Activision acquisition that is still pending. I think that probably was one of the factors that led to this, because that is a huge merger and acquisition for Microsoft. I think that's the largest in history of what we've seen so far.
You're talking about like in the gaming industry?
No, just the largest acquisition of all time. Just the
Oh,
amount of,
really?
yeah, I think the amount of
I thought it
money
was
that,
IBM that had the largest of all time, but I could be wrong.
maybe it is.
Doing research right now.
I just know that, that it was a huge amount of money that Microsoft needed to put down to acquire Activision. And, with that, that brings a lot of things a lot of scrutiny just to make sure that that deal is correct. And so, with this, I think it's a good idea. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
with that, I mean, it'll allow greater research into the agreement that goes in before the deal is passed, and it'll allow for more resources to be used. And also, it can be kind of a deterrent for some people that are just not really into the deal and just doing it just because they can. It can be a way of fleshing out, ensuring that more more solid deals go through and are initiated.
Yeah, yeah, and there have been massive acquisitions in various industries, right? T-Mobile and Sprint, right? That's a
Yeah, that was
huge one,
huge.
massive. And I think there was a previous one in the telecom industry that was denied. And there was one in the cable industry back in the early 2000s. I want to say it was Comcast and someone else, and that one was denied. But I mean, a lot of that they were denied, right? Because then it's like really you only have two options or one option, very few limited options. But I think competition is crucial. It's necessary in order to have a fair market. And when you have these large companies buying up smaller companies or up and coming competitors,
Mhm.
if someone were to be a strong competitor for big tech, in whatever market it is, social media platform or, online marketplace, whatever it is, those big tech companies are threatened and they want to just devour them. And stopping it, I think, is good for the market. It gives people more options. It makes these companies innovate. It makes them drive prices down to be more competitive. And I think the more of that we have, the better, personally. So I like this. I think it goes to show that, our politicians like it too. Both sides support it. So I don't think it's like Democrats or Republicans pushing an agenda. No, I think it's just honestly everyone agrees that a fair market is a better market.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be good for all parties involved, and something that'll, you know, continue in the spirit of competition and make make better products for consumers. And I think this is great. Glad that this is going through, and hopefully, future deals will be better and more solid and
Yeah.
make it better for the consumer, because that's what we all want.
Yep.
All right. Looks like Elon Musk is now going to actually be purchasing Twitter. So
Yeah.
this is pretty interesting to me. And I know you brought this up, Ben, if you want to kind of go over what's going on with this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think everyone knows the whole drama with Elon saying he's going to buy Twitter. Twitter did some. some stuff to try and avoid it. They did some financial changes with their stocks. Then they took the poison pill, and their stock actually essentially tanked. Right, it
Yeah,
dropped significantly.
for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, Musk backed off, and he's like, "Oh, maybe I don't want to." Um, and he backed off because he's like, "I wouldn't be able to acquire anything larger than 14.9%. Um, he would have to give up some of his like pastime of tweeting of how Twitter sucks if he bought it. 'Cause, that's more of like a joke than anything. But anyway, for 44 billion, that was the deal. So because he started backing off, Twitter said, "Okay, let's go to court over this because you kind of screwed us over. Because of your intentions to buy, we made financial decisions that drove our stock down and screwed us over. And as a result, we're going to take you to court for that. And we're going to try and get money that we felt like we lost because of you." So they were set to go to court October 17th. Well, this last Tuesday, he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm actually going to go through and purchase the deal for Twitter for," he says, $54.20 a share after all. That's if the judge overseeing the lawsuit adjourned the case. So, yeah, there's this article goes over why Musk doesn't want to cancel his deal anymore, and he wants to go through with it. I think when he got into discovery and like of the trial process, I think he realized, oh crap, there's actually some valid reasons why they can come after me for this. Um, and as a result, I think he realized I did have major implications on Twitter and their stock. I could be royally screwed for it. So if I'm going to be paying a lot of money, I might as well be paying a lot of money for purchasing it. That's my personal opinion of why he's going through with it, but I could be completely wrong. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I think it's a very interesting situation, and I think you bring up a valid point. You know, when Elon Musk first announced that he was going to buy this, I thought this could be really good. It will provide somebody that as as a way of checks and balances for the content and allowing for actual free speech on Twitter. And then he goes through discovery and finds, I think the initial reason why he decided not to go through with the deal was because Twitter was not forthcoming on their bots that they have within Twitter
Hmm,
itself, and
interesting.
they didn't disclose that fact. And so that's kind of why he wanted to back out. And so, hearing this that now he wants to get back into the deal and go through with it was a little surprising to me. It was something that I didn't expect. Uh, I really do think that this would be a good all around thing for Twitter and a, a I guess a good way of purporting free speech. I think
Mhm.
that's something that we need to do that, even if there is a different opposing side, I think we need to be able to hear that. It's something that allows us to have informed decisions. And
Yeah.
without that, if there is censoring of the press in any way, that hinders our ability to get all of the information and all of the facts. So, you know, I, I think it's really interesting, and I really do hope that the deal finally does go through. Taking a look at Twitter stock, I think about July 11th when he stated that he was going to back out of the deal is when their stock dropped to $32.
Yeah.
And then on
When
Tuesday
he's
when
like,
he
come
announced
back
it,
in.
back up to $52.
Yeah. The
So,
amount of influence this guy has is insane. Right. It's just
yeah, I mean,
crazy.
unfortunately, like the stock shouldn't I mean, it's swaying just based on stuff that doesn't actually matter.
Yeah. It's funny how people are emotional, and so they react emotionally with their money. Um, so it's funny how that is. I agree with you on the freedom of speech aspect. I think Twitter has been very biased in what they've been censoring. They censor certain people that you can argue and say it's not really that bad, but then they don't censor literal terrorists, And it's like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. And I think Elon gets a lot of hate, but he also gets a lot of love. I do think Elon is on the fence on both sides, like on the political spectrum. And I think he would have probably one of the least biased opinions, and he would have probably one of the least biased policies in owning and managing Twitter. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for perfection. That'll never happen.
Yeah,
People have, they have biases no matter what. But I think he would have an like intellectual, honest approach, right? And very few people can handle their emotions in a way where they can check their bias and look at a situation intellectually and be honest about it. And I think he's one of the individuals who is a very good talent for doing that. And so him applying that to Twitter and allowing for that freedom of speech to happen, I think that's fair. So
I agree. Hoping it goes through and hoping that all goes well with that.
yeah.
All right. Looks like the Tesla Semi is finally going to be delivered. After what is this now? 6 years since it was first unveiled. The first production of the Tesla semi truck is going to be delivered at Pepsi with a 500-mile range. So, I'm a huge fan of Tesla. Own a Tesla and really am supportive of the innovations that they have made with their vehicles. Also very frustrated with some of their lack of follow through on what they say they're going to do. For instance, this semi, they said that they were going to be releasing this about 3 years ago, and here we are in 2022, and it's, I guess, finally coming true. And so it's kind of interesting that this has taken so long to get through. But I think with the Tesla Semi, it's going to bring a new way of transportation and some innovations that are going to be good for the economy. They're planning on having a lot of the same features of their regular fleet vehicles. Their supposed full self-driving will be available in this, and it's going to have a 500-mile range while pulling a semi, which is pretty incredible. I mean, I know with electric vehicles, the ability to tow and the energy capacity is always a concern. And so with this being able to haul a trailer and go that amount of range on a single battery will will be very interesting. And I hope that is actually true, that it does have that amount of range. What are your thoughts on Tesla
Yeah, I
Semi?
agree. Yeah, if it can live up to the range, that's pretty phenomenal. With electric vehicles though, I will say as a concern is the infrastructure is not where it needs to be with the consumer demand and
Oh, for
the
sure.
amount of people that have purchased them. So my thought here is, how are they going to charge it? What kind of logistics does this mean? Are they going to be able to deliver things faster or more? I mean, more efficient, maybe from like a fossil fuel burning perspective, sure, but from a time standpoint, that's where I want to know if that's actually going to happen, because fueling up versus charging up, those are different time frames. And I don't know if you know this, but I used to work for a truck manufacturing company. So Kenworth and Peterbilt, I worked for the parent company for a little bit in Seattle. And they pride themselves on their vehicles, and logistics wise, they have it down to a T. And I want to know like, I want to know what charging is going to do to those logistics with the timing. I also want to know what like the payload, the weight that they can handle versus a traditional semi truck. I'm really curious to see what happens here. I think this is really cool, really innovative. I would love to see one of these on the road. I'd love to drive one, or at least get in
Yes.
the driver's seat of one. But I have a lot of questions on how well it's going to perform and if it's actually going to be that much better than the other trucks.
You
And
know,
maybe
I
this is all like rumored. Maybe this is all news, hypothetical news, and like released in their in their big on stage announcements. And I just haven't done my homework. But reality and actuality, when it actually is released, that's going to be different. It always is different, right? So
yeah, I completely agree. I think with these, you know, I don't think that it's going to be able to do a cross country haul.
mm,
I'm kind of thinking this would be just like an intrastate type of delivery, from maybe from one end of California to the other end, and then you charge once you have it delivered. Because, you know, being driving an electric vehicle cross state, with Tesla's infrastructure of their supercharger, it's doable. However, it's just not as convenient as filling up at a gas station. There's still quite a bit of time to charge, and the larger battery you have, the larger, the longer it's going to take to charge and put energy in that battery.
yep, I agree. Yeah. It'll be
So,
interesting to see. I think they're really cool though.
yeah, I hope this turns out well, and I hope there becomes a lot of innovation from this. However, I, I still am a little skeptical with our current infrastructure and um, the ability to tow at a constant rate of speed without losing a whole lot of energy.
Yeah.
I know with current vehicles, especially like Rivian or Tesla with their SUVs, as soon as you hook something up to tow that, your range just plummets. And
Really,
yeah,
really.
um,
That's really interesting.
because I know there have been like several videos of people who have had the Model X that have tried to tow something, and the computer in Tesla isn't really able to calculate the weight of the trailer effectively and um, get you to your destination. So
Huh.
in stretches of the area where there's a very long distance between superchargers, people have not quite made it to the next supercharger to charge
Oof,
up.
that
So
sucks.
yeah. So
That 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 brings up like the question I have is like the F-150 Lightning's coming out, and like I mean the F-150 that is like the main purpose is to tow, right? Like you're gonna be putting stuff in the bed, you're gonna be towing things. Also, Chevy has their electric Silverado that's coming out, and it makes me wonder how thorough their testing is, and if they've factored those things in. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
yeah, it'll be super interesting, super hopeful, and hope that everything goes well and that we get some greater innovation going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, should we get into our last fun one, Super Mario and Chris Pratt?
Let's do it.
All right. So it looks like there is going to be a Super Mario movie, and Chris Pratt is going to be the voice of it. This is
Yep.
pretty interesting. I hadn't heard anything about it until you brought it up today.
Yeah, I've seen. So when they first announced the movie and the cast, everyone was surprised that Chris Pratt was Mario. A lot of people were really excited because a lot of people love Chris Pratt. I personally am a big fan of him.
Yeah, me too.
And a lot of other people were like hesitant, like, well, can he do the voice? And so So a lot it's been up in the air, skeptical, like what's he gonna sound like? Is he just gonna is Chris Pratt gonna do his own Mario voice? Is he gonna try and mimic the old one, like the true Mario voice that we know, or is he just gonna be his regular voice? Well, spoiler alert, the trailer came out today, and for the most part, it's Chris Pratt voicing Mario. That's what it is. Um, and a lot of people are disappointed. Some people really like it. It's just a matter of personal opinion. I'm going to give my hot take on it. I love Chris Pratt, but I don't think his voice is a Mario voice. Now,
He's
with
he's
that being
not an
said, so
Italian plumber.
no, he's not an Italian plumber from New York. So with that being said, you get a glimpse of a little bit of traditional Mario at the very end of the clip when Chris Pratt in the trailer he goes and he says I think he says here we go, and it sounds a lot like Chris Pratt, but there's a little bit of annotation, is that it? No. um Anyway, he
Inflection.
raises his inflection. Yeah, he raises his voice just slightly, like here we go, but it's not even that much. It's just ever
Ah,
so slightly to be like, oh, is that a hint at the old Mario? Maybe it is. So we need more. I think we need more of a preview. We only get like 3 lines from him as Mario, but it's a hot topic of discussion right now amongst the gaming community. IGN took the trailer and they dubbed the old Mario, like traditional Mario voice over it, and they posted it, and everyone's like, "This
uh,
is what it should be. It's so much
yeah.
better with the old Mario voice." So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think they should have gone with the traditional Mario or?
I when it comes to like video games and theatrical adaptation of it, I'm of the opinion that you need to get it as close to the video game as possible. And you know, I love Chris Pratt and I think he's an amazing actor. However, if he's going to act as Mario, he needs to act as Mario
Yeah,
and he has to mimic the voice and it has to be as true to life of the video game as possible.
yeah,
I think that's the majority of what people are expecting. People that have played Mario through their childhood um, know what the voice is and uh, come with that expectation. And if it's not going to meet that, it's going to be a serious disappointment.
yeah. I agree 100%. And with that too, I to your point of people expect that. Think about the Sonic movie. The first Sonic movie came out, and the first character design when they showed the preview, everyone was like, this looks like a freaking rat. This isn't like
Yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog. And the consumers pushed the design team to go back, delay the movie, and redesign Sonic, which they did. My second point supporting your statement is the Halo franchise on Paramount
Oh dear.
Plus.
Oh,
I don't
that's
want to bring this up. I don't want to bring this up because I will rip it to shreds. But true Halo fans, true gamers, people who actually like the Halo series, they hate this TV series. It's garbage,
it
absolute
is
trash.
trash.
Don't watch it. I cannot believe they got a green light for a second season. It's horrible.
I
So
can't
you're
believe
right.
it made it past the second episode.
Yeah, I know. It's so bad. So I agree with your statement that people expect what they love, right? We love Mario for a reason. We love Halo for a reason. We love Sonic the Hedgehog for a reason. Don't change it. We love it for what it is.
Yes.
So anyway, I hope we get more of the traditional Mario voice, and Chris Pratt does a good job of like bringing his own personality to it while maintaining the legacy of Mario
Mhm.
and his voice. I hope it's what we get, a good mixture. I don't think it is, but I am hopeful.
Yes. I mean, as of right now, it's just a couple of lines, and it's still in development, so there is potential for change.
Yeah.
So I agree. I do hope that we get a good mix. And, even if his Chris Pratt's personality is in there along with it, I think that'd be good. I like it when characters do put their own personality into what they act.
Yeah.
You know, especially with like the comic books, a lot of the comic book movies that we have, you know, you see a lot of the actors who are still pretty true to life, but they do have their own adaptation to it, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So as long as it's not as bad as Halo, I think we'll be okay
Yeah.
because Halo is just absolute garbage.
Yeah, that gets weird.
That TV series.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm definitely gonna still watch Super Mario. We're gonna watch it with my kids, because it's
yeah,
Mario.
it'll be fun. I know my wife has uh played a lot of Mario growing up, and so she's gonna absolutely hopefully love this as well.
Yeah. Side note, the other voice actors, especially Jack Black as Bowser, really impressive. I was actually really I was so happy when I was listening to Bowser and I was like, that's a good Bowser. And I was like, that's a little bit of Jack Black in there.
Yeah.
I love that. I really love that. So Jack Black does a great job of like keeping it Bowser legacy, but also mixing in a little bit of Jack Black into it. So I'm excited for the movie. We'll see.
Also, I think Jack Black is an incredible actor. I mean,
Phenomenal.
especially what he's done with the um Jumanji
Yeah.
series
So
now.
funny. So funny.
Him acting as a teenage girl, spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah. There's honestly can't think of a movie with Jack Black, and I haven't seen all of his movies. I can't think of one that I'm like, that was disappointing. Everyone that I've seen is like, man, Jack Black is just so good. It's just
Yeah.
great.
Especially School of Rock. I remember watching that over and
School
over
Rock is
when I was young.
epic. Probably one of his best. Kung Fu Panda is
Oh,
phenomenal.
yes.
What's the Christmas one where they swap
Oh,
houses?
yes.
Uh, man,
Now I
it's
can't
like
think of that.
yeah, it's like house swap. Who is it?
Someone will put it in the comments. So,
I'm googling right now.
okay.
The Holiday. That's
Oh,
what it is.
yes, The
The
Holiday.
Holiday. Yeah.
Yes. That one was awesome.
Yeah.
So,
All around good movie.
yeah. So, hopeful for uh, Super Mario should be good. However, we shall see.
Yep. Yep.
So, all right. Well, that's about what we have for everyone this evening. I think we had some good discussions, some good opinions. Uh, so we hope everything that we shared was a little helpful in your endeavors and helping you be a little bit more informed as your average consumer. So until next time, you all have a wonderful evening and stay classy.
See ya.